There, my name is Stephanie Bain. I am the head of account management and research at CivicScience, and I am here today to talk to you about how our technology can provide valuable insights across your entire enterprise, and also specifically how what we do can uniquely enhance and enrich your brand tracking practice and help take you from the what to the why. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do and how we collect our data. I'm going to talk about our innovative approach to tracking enrichment. And then at the end of this, I'll show you a little bit what it looks like to interface with our technology. So why the focus on tracking enrichment? We all know how invaluable tracking studies can be. I worked in advertising for about 20 years before I came to CivicScience as a planner and researcher. And so at least weekly, I was talking to clients about data from their tracking study. That data is used to inform messaging strategy. It informs media strategy. You can use it to make decisions, to prioritize operational initiatives within an organization. So while the information from a tracking study is non-negotiable and it's dead useful, sometimes it can also be frustrating to execute a tracking study for a couple of reasons. You can spend a lot of money on it and end up with really narrow results. To use a perhaps heavy-handed metaphor that you can see on the screen, you get the tip of the iceberg, what's going on, but not all the reasons for it. And there's some contributing factors to that are based in how tracking research is usually done. We all have had to live with sort of degrading sample and how hard it is to get good sample. We also have to live with how hard it is to motivate consumers to answer all the questions we want them to answer. And in fact, by the time you pay a consumer to answer all the questions you want answered about your brand, you have potentially introduced bias into your research. Anyone who self-selects to do a long tracking study is also somebody who is more value-driven, possibly more price-sensitive. So knowing the limitations of standard tracking, what does CivicScience do differently that can help you? And how do we do it? So what's important to understand is that CivicScience is a polling platform. We collect first-party data across the internet using an interactive widget. And our widget appears on hundreds of websites. It appears in apps and it appears in games. So respondents see questions in a native environment. Something else that's really important to know, it's 100% voluntary. Respondents aren't incentivized. They're also anonymous. All of our data is permissioned and CCPA compliant. We are also gathering an enormous volume of data, over 3 million responses a day. It's a high velocity of data. And in addition to the questions that we field on behalf of our clients, the custom questions, we are always running about 2,000 syndicated questions. And that is really the source of how that's the reason we are able to enrich tracking. Some of those 2,000 questions are on topics like these. Some of the topics that you wish you could ask about, but maybe don't fit into your standard tracking survey. We look at things like not just demographics, demographic profiles. We look at entertainment, attitudes about health and wellness. We look at attitudes about personal finance and the economy, technology usage, and of course, along with shopping habits. So obviously, our data works very differently than survey data. Some respondents are answering 4 questions at a go. Some respondents are answering up to 30. But the important thing about working with our data, which is a sparse grid, is that every respondent doesn't need to answer every question. Enough people answer enough questions for in-depth analysis of everything that is asked. So obviously, working with this kind of data set has an impact on the way you execute tracking in our platform. And as I've said, each question is discrete and independent. There's no series of questions. There's no branch logic. Each question is asked one by one. An analysis of the relationship between the questions is based on cross response between independent questions. And at any given day or time, there's about 50 to 70% crossover in question response for everything that's running. There are three very standard question designs. Nothing that anybody watching this, listening to this, wouldn't be familiar with. They're single select, checkbox, and matrix. They're written like you would write them for any survey. We do make some tweaks and adjustments, make them sometimes slightly shorter, more natural language so that they feel fun and they feel good in the native environment in which they appear. So when you come to civic science to do tracking, um, you can approach it a couple of ways. Most clients actually come with a point of view on what they already want to ask, and we adapt their custom brand tracker to our system. So most people know how they want to go about it. In the event that you want a point of view on how to build a tracking study from the ground up, we can do that. And we start with, I'll give you an example of three standard diagnostic modules that give you the answers to those questions, those non-negotiable questions that you have to ask to make certain decisions. An obvious diagnostic module that we recommend is a purchase funnel diagnostic module. And you can, if you tell us you want to be able to answer questions about message performance and media performance relative to the competition, we put together an analysis of purchase funnel metrics like this. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about how we integrate how we adapt your tracking to our system. The truth is, most clients come to us with an established way of approaching tracking. They have ideas about what they want to know and what they want to ask. But if you want us to develop a tracking study, we can do that. We can build your questions from the ground up. If you tell us what questions you want to answer, we'll put together the diagnostic module. An example of a diagnostic module: if you tell us you want to be able to evaluate your marketing plan and identify issues with messaging strategy or potentially issues with media spend in the context of your competitors, we'll recommend purchase funnel diagnostics of your brand relative to the competition. If you tell us you want to answer questions about internal initiatives on what sort of operational efforts you need to take to maybe improve an experience in a restaurant or in a store, we will put together a diagnostic module based on importance and performance of certain attributes, for example, and it can be stated or derived importance and performance on attributes relative to the competition. If you tell us you want to monitor your brand health, we can put together a diagnostic module that looks at brand health in the context of, of different metrics. For example, plotting brand health metrics like innovation and momentum or personal relevance that we know are important to long-term success of a brand for your brand versus the competition. So whatever questions that you want answered, we can provide a diagnostic module and a set of questions that'll get you the answer to those questions. Again, I said most of our clients come to us with their own point of view of how they want it done, but we can build it for you if you want us to. Okay. So advantages of tracking with civic science. I've talked to you about some of these, but I just really want to hit some of them again. Our approach, our technology allows you to eliminate panel bias. Respondents aren't incentivized. And in fact, sometimes when we look at client data from panel surveys, we see a real difference in things like price sensitivity between our data and panel survey data, and I think our data is more representative of reality. We can also amplify your study with syndicated data. You can have not 32 questions, not 64. You have 1,800 questions in any tracking study. If you ask one question to identify your target audience, you can cross it with every question in the syndicated library, and that becomes your tracking study. Additionally, as I said, you can control the flow of information. There are some questions you might want to keep always on, like category usage or brand usage. And then other questions you might want to look at once a year, like brand health. And so you can dial it up or dial it down based on how important certain information is to you. And something that is not on here that I realize should be its whole entire slide. I mentioned the sort of velocity of our collection being so high at 3 million responses a day. And if you have a really, really hard to find population, we can reach an incidence rate, a population with an incidence rate of 1.5%, or 5 million people. No less than that, but we can reach them. We can get data on Gen Pop in hours. It takes a little longer when you're looking for a small incidence rate like that, but with us, it can be done. So now I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that tracking enrichment and on the fact that you actually have a 2,000 question tracking study with us instead of a much shorter tracking study. And this is really about taking it from the what to why, taking those KPIs and then marrying them with everything else. We can provide you information if you, for example, identify your key target audience, and we have an always on question segmenting your target audience. We can then cut that target audience by all of the issues that could be impacting your brand's performance. We can get that, get below the tip of the iceberg and see what's going on under there. As an example, you might see that awareness of your brand is high, but consideration is low, in spite of good performance on different decision factors. Well, what might be going on could be completely outside of that context. It could have something to do with the war in Ukraine. It could have something to do with a new COVID strain. It could have something to do with attitudes around social justice issues, or it could be something closer in, like industry trends that are that don't quite make the cut in a tracking study, that sort of just fall outside of the cut into the nice to have. So I'll show you an example of how that looks if we can provide standard reporting on these issues. I can show you how that looks just in a PowerPoint, and then I can show you how it looks in our system. Here is an example. You can take a target identified as a past 3-month purchaser of a brand and track their attitudes about inflation, their concern about inflation. So you can see if your target audience is feeling better or worse relative to Gen Pop, and you can consider the implications of that. You can take the target like a past 3-month purchaser, and look at their attitudes and how they're being affected by Omicron. The target in this particular example is a group of people who are more concerned about inflation than they were about the Omicron variant. This had some implications when it came to their behavior and what they wanted to spend money on. We learned that they were more likely to splurge on event tickets, almost twice as likely as the Gen Pop to do that, and they were more likely to want to spend extra money dining out. Another example, you can take a look at what your target audience feels across product categories. So if you see, I made the example, maybe awareness of your brand is up, but consideration is down, it's possible that they're shifting their attention to different categories than the one that you occupy. So that's an example of how you can enrich tracking by, having an always-on question about your target audience and cutting it across our data. And now I will take a moment to show you how that looks in our Insight Store. Here we are in the Insight Store, and I just want to tell you a little bit about what you're looking at, even though I'm not going to do a full demo of how you would use it. But I just want to let you know that this dashboard that you're looking at is a workspace. Dashboards are where you can go to take your target audience segment and cut it across our 2,000 questions and explore and build a story. It's something you can do as a user on your own, and it's also something that you can ask our team to help you with. And you can see across the banner at the top, there's a dashboard button. There's questions where you can go into our question library. There are segments where you can go look for broadly available segments and also custom segments that you build to analyze your data. Um, and then you can go ahead and look at, reports. But this dashboard is your workspace. And the first thing I pulled up, I just wanted to make a couple of points. This is a workspace that's a live workspace in our company right now, that is addressing the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And I just want to mention, as evidence of velocity, that first question in the top right-hand corner or top left-hand corner, how concerned are you about the Russia-Ukraine war? That is a question that was served around 3:30 today, and you can see we already have thousands of responses. So, depending on the category that you are working in, you might have clients or customers whose behavior is going to be really impacted by this. Perhaps in the financial sector, it's people have real concerns. Perhaps people who travel long distance for work are worried about gas prices or worried about heating their homes. So you can go in immediately and see how your customers right now, today, are feeling about the Russia-Ukraine war. And you can see, I can scroll down here and you can see that we can cross these questions with other syndicated questions in our data set, not just your customer segment, but you can see how the situation in Ukraine and Russia is impacting people's attitudes about the economy. You can see some changing attitudes about money here compared to today. Do you expect to have more or less money invested? You can see that changing in response to what's going on. So another dashboard that I can show you, that's representative actually of how quite a few people use our data, is taking a look at a key target segment crossed with data on economic outlook. This dashboard that you're looking right here is Gen Z cut across different questions about the economy. And you can see there are some findings at the top. They're just really interesting when you compare Gen Z to other folks. Both 18 to 24-year-olds and 25 plus are feeling fairly negative about the economy right now. But half of adults 18 to 24 think their situation is going to improve. Possibly that is the optimism of youth. Possibly it's based in real life circumstances, like the fact that many of them are, changing jobs or something like that, expecting employment opportunity to improve. So you can look at current attitudes. You can also look at how attitudes have been changing over time. You can see, as one example here, when you are looking at attitude, whether people believe the economy is going to get worse over time, you can see where that jumped. If you look here, this corresponds to some degree with the arrival of the Delta variant in the population. People, their attitudes took a turn for the worse, expecting more economic consequences from coronavirus. You can see how these attitudes extend to things like new home purchase and how how people in certain target definitions feel about home purchase, job search, etc. One way to use our economic data that's actually really common with our clients is to take category users and brand users or another kind of key target audience like Gen Z and have monthly reporting on consumer health metrics. And for quite a few clients, we have a monthly, just routine reporting monthly on these things. And then for some clients, we actually, as you head into holiday, understanding that, most retailers make most of their money in the last quarter of the year, You can also increase the frequency of reporting like this and have detailed reporting with key findings provided on a weekly basis. And if you choose metrics that really matter, for example, to a C-suite, it can be something that is, for many of our clients, actually during holiday season, our financial reporting was elevated to the C-suite on a regular basis. Another topic that is of great interest to many of our clients are actually attitudes about streaming and cord cutting. We have a lot of questions about these behaviors. Here you can see a comparison of Gen Z versus adults 25 plus when it comes to streaming and cord cutting. Not surprisingly, well, all Americans of all ages are cord cutting, but not surprisingly, adults 18 to 24 are really leading the charge there. And you can look at behaviors. You can look at behaviors over time and see how it's changing. You can get into details on which subscription services people are most interested in. It's just another example of routine reporting that we can provide, routine or one-time reporting based on a target audience. Another set of brand metrics that we did routine or episodic reporting on for clients are related to attitudes about political and social views. You can imagine over the past 2 years, in the context of Black Lives Matter protests and other things going on in the country, that brands wanted to understand whether or not there was an expectation that they participate or whether they had permission to participate when it came to social issues. So we have overall metrics that we can provide in terms of how different target audiences feel about companies' engagement on social and political issues. And we can do custom work on whether your brand in particular has a permission or an expectation from consumers that they participate in or weigh in on social justice issues. Now I am going to end on something slightly different just to show you a cool functionality of how our data, how our system does some of the work for you when it comes to discovering important insights about a target audience. You can find a particular question in the insight store, and you can go, you can identify the question, and then you can go down here, and if you see along here this list, there is an Insights tab. And our system actually has an Insights button where you go down here and you push compute or recompute, because I already prepared these, and our system will provide you with a list of insights that are most highly correlated to the way people answered this question. So you can see that come up, so you can immediately understand what's important. And then even cooler, when you choose the display mode, you can have an automatically generated narrative that spells out the key insights around the question that is important to you. So you can see here, looking ahead 6 months, do you think the US economy will get better, stay the same, or get worse? You will get a quick summary of what issues are associated, what other insights, what other findings are associated with people who believe the economy will get worse, stay the same, or get better. This, as a former account planner in an ad agency, is my favorite feature because the hard thing, I'm sure you live it as a researcher, the research is only as good as you are. It's the ideas, it's only as creative as you make it. And sometimes it's hard to have a hypothesis or you really have no idea. The cool thing about the way our data works at CivicScience is that you can have the data give you the insight or give you the hypothesis. You don't have to know you're looking for something to find it, and it's extremely powerful. All right, so that's it. I hope at this point I have convinced you all of the power of CivicScience to enrich your tracking and give you a really powerful, unique look at your consumer. And if you have any additional questions or comments, I encourage you to reach out to me personally or to reach out to civicscience.com.